Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and of course, that makes this a bonus episode of Circles and Squares. That's right, everybody. It is mere hours after the PlayStation showcase, PlayStation 2021 showcase, and we just watched the whole thing. We're excited to get into our thoughts and impressions on that. And I guess, Kate, top level, how are you feeling after watching what Sony had to show today?
I feel an extreme level of adrenaline after watching that. We'll get into it in more detail. Overall, I think it was a great presentation, really good pacing, tons of exciting new stuff. I know we saw a lot of stuff we already knew about, but I think that's just kind of to be expected with how all the delays have been and whatnot. But I was definitely glad. There were two things that maybe we'll go into when the time is right. There are two things I was crossing my fingers for seeing, and I got both of them. So I'm very pleased that was the case. And then also I got some things I never even knew I was asking for.
Yeah, right. It's quite a collection of stuff here. So we'll get into it in just a second. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone again, this is a bonus episode of the show. This PlayStation, of course, had to do this presentation on an off week for our show. So here we are with one extra bonus episode for you guys. But our regular content can be found, of course, all over where you listen to podcasts. Just search Circles and Squares podcast, and we'll be right there for you on YouTube, podcast services. Everywhere you want to listen. Thank you so much for doing so. And one other thing too is that we'd love to hear your thoughts on the showcase itself. What was your favorite announcement? Did something surprise you? What was the thing that you're looking forward to most? So please just send us an email if you want to get in touch, circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com, or over on Twitter @CNSpod as well. You can get in touch with us there and write in, let us know what you thought. We'll definitely be reading those emails out maybe on the next show if we get some responses. So please look forward to that. But for now, Kate, let's get into the announcements that we saw at the PlayStation Showcase today. We're just going to go in order down the list and talk about each one just a little bit and give our thoughts. So let's start off. This is a way to start a show. The show didn't even start with a game. It started with a trailer of some variety, and this is one of those do you remember a few years ago? I guess maybe in the mid PS4 era, there was kind of those play forever, those commercials where it was like you're going into the PlayStation world in some way. And there was a few of these kind of weird commercials. We had another one at the start of this showcase, and we were just sitting there. We watched this together, and it's just is this a game? Is this like a commercial? What is this? We were speculating, and I think, it was very stylistic, and I liked it as an opening because a lot of times I feel like these showcases, if they start with a game and it's not a game you're interested in, it can be oh, I'm already tuned out, not paying attention. But I feel like we were kind of on the edge of the couch being what is this to start off? So I like the way that they began the presentation with that commercial.
I agree. I think it was a lot of fun. I don't feel let down that it wasn't a real game because obviously we were speculating. I thought the whole time, and I was convinced, I was ready to put money on that it was an auto chess because there was such a chess theme throughout the commercial. And I was that would be cool as hell, and you get to buy all the PlayStation characters as your units for it. So maybe that's still a thing that'll eventually get made. But overall I liked it. Yeah, it just kind of sets the tone and the mood of the show, without really having to put their stakes in a single game. So I liked it. I think it was just fun.
It was, yeah, and I'd be interested to see okay, how many Easter eggs are in there, because I bet there's tons. But anyway, let's talk about the first game we saw there. Was Knights of the Old Republic is getting remade for the PS5, and this was, I think people have been wanting this for a while, but I don't know if we've ever really had any kind of confirmation it was in the works. And so this is a big way to start the show off. I know KOTOR is one of those games back from the early days of the Xbox, where people were this is a reason to own this system. And so it's one of those that's kind of been lost to time, I guess, in a lot of ways, but it's on PC and whatever too now. And I think coming to PS5 with a remake, Star Wars is such a big property, it's going to get a lot of people into the series and check out one of BioWare's oldest games. And so I know for me, it's one I've never played. I might be interested in this. We'll see, but it's definitely a cool game to see make a comeback.
Yeah, it was definitely a strong way to start the show. I think a lot of people didn't know that, or didn't know to expect something like this, and it was a dream come true they didn't know they had. It was actually the one thing I had spoiled for me before the show. Just a friend is a really big Star Wars fan, and so I don't think he watched the presentation, but just saw that this game was a thing. I was holy shit, Star Wars, it looks so good.
Especially a game like KOTOR.
Yeah, exactly. And it was definitely a pretty hype trailer. So if you're a Star Wars fan or just a BioWare fan, we're off to a good start.
We're off to a good start, and we continued on with Project Eve after that. This is a game from a new studio. I don't think we've seen anything before, at least in our neck of the world here. I think there's a mobile developer, Korean developer for this one, but this is Project Eve. It's very reminiscent of like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, those character action style games. And I think our overall sentiment was like, hey, the world is really cool. Like there's some interesting beings. It's too bad the protagonist maybe is a bit over sexualized and all that stuff. But I mean, the game itself looks kind of interesting. Good pacing, like some cool effects in there for sure. So interesting to keep an eye on, I would say.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement. I think like it's weird because the world looks so cool. Like some of the enemy designs are fantastic looking in this game. Like I really like the tone and the atmosphere. The effects are quite like visually pleasing as well. Like that was the one thing that kind of stuck out, and I don't think it'll keep me away from the game because I think the game genuinely looks really fun otherwise. But yeah, that main character was not really jiving with me too much, and it's a shame because like the monsters have amazing character design. Like they've got like tires for heads, and they're like weird
spiky,
like monstrosities. Like they're really cool.
They're almost like a new fresh take on what a zombie could be. Like zombies more like also fused with, I don't even know what you call them. They're just like supernatural looking compared to what you normally envision.
Yeah, they're like supernatural, like biological, like alien. It's like Returnal meets Devil May Cry is what I'm getting out of this. And it looks awesome. But yeah, and then you got that like weird anime protagonist that just, I don't know, it doesn't really fit with me. She seemed like kind of out of place. And I don't know, it just seemed like we just really want a character that you can stare at her ass all day. So
that really was, and they did it so many times. You get those camera shots in the trailer, and like we all know why they're putting shots like that in. Like, I think in general I feel like most of the industry is just trying to move past that type of thing now and be more respectful, and so it's kind of always a bit jarring when you see trailers like this. But,
yeah, exactly, and like especially when it like doesn't really match with the rest of the game, right? Like you get that like Bayonetta because like, well, that's her thing, and like it's kind of designed with that intentionally in mind. But this just kind of very much came across as like, we just wanted to have an anime girl for a reason
because sales numbers and all
yeah,
that. So, yeah,
exactly. And maybe there's more to it. We don't know. Like maybe they do a story reason, and like Quiet had a reason in Metal Gear, like something like that. But overall, like the actual game itself does look really hectic, really fun, and I think I will be keeping my eye on this one.
Yeah, those ice effects especially were super cool. Like the way that kind of froze in midair and all the particles kind of falling down and shattering. Like that was cool. I like that. After that, we saw another look at Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which of course we have seen before, but this was more of a gameplay trailer showing off what Borderlands might look like in a more fantasy style setting. And so, what did you think of Tiny Tina?
I think Tiny Tina is great. I've given Borderlands 1 and 2 a try with a couple of different groups, and it's just not my style of game, unfortunately. But the one thing that motivated me to play was the original Tiny Tina campaign, because I really enjoyed playing D&D, and it just looked like a ton of fun. And I never actually made it to that campaign through either of my Borderlands stints. So I think if there ever is a universe where I play some Borderlands, this is the game. It genuinely looks really good. I think the visuals and the art style really fit a fantasy setting.
Yeah, so do I
think despite like the humor maybe being a little over the top sometimes, I think a lot of it's gonna land. Like Borderlands is genuinely a really funny series. And the wacky over the top, like it looks really good. I think this is a game where like even if you're not a big Borderlands person, might still be a worthwhile thing to check out.
Yeah, and it's also using one of their strongest points, which is giving more emphasis to some of those side characters as well. Like Borderlands as a franchise, I think does really well for like developing those side characters into memorable. Like they're not just throwaway characters making dumb jokes, and so people have an affinity for Tiny Tina for some reason, and so I'm someone who actually has made it all the way through and played that Tiny Tina's DLC for Borderlands, and that was actually a lot of fun. I like what they did, kind of mixing the elements of D&D with what Borderlands offers. So seeing that kind of more fleshed out in a whole new world and like a more fantasy world is cool. I'm interested to see kind of what this is. Probably good for people that have never played Borderlands to get into the series through this. Maybe it'll be a bit shorter. You never know. I don't know if I'll play it, but you know, it's there. And if people were like, "Hey, let's play Tiny Tina," I would probably join them. Looks fun.
Mhm. I
Um,
know
uh,
I do have to shout out as well, just one little tiny thing. Maybe I'm biased because when I played my first big D&D campaign, I was a bard. But they said like, and you get loot because that's a big Borderlands thing, and then it's like a bard character playing a lute. Very, very well done.
After that, we saw Forespoken, which was a. We were kind of debating like, what is this? Is this that like Final Fantasy game? Is this Forespoken? It turns out it was Forespoken, and this trailer was, for me, maybe a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, it had some very interesting ideas. Like, I didn't realize the character is kind of from modern society and getting sucked back into this more fantasy kind of realm. I don't know. Like, it just, I would like to get a little bit more context about what's going on here. But the story for sure seems compelling to say the least. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It's not at all what I expected, especially from the various iterations we've seen of Forspoken. When it was originally Project Athia, just kind of more of like a tech demo than anything else, and now seeing its development into like a proper game. This is probably one of those ones that like it's. I think it looks very visually impressive. Most like specifically on all of the effects on the moves, like all of the elements and the motion blur when she's swinging around, and all of like the flying up and the particles coming out when anything gets hit. Like it is an absolute like visual like showcase. It is amazing on that front, but I don't. Yeah, I want to know what kind of more the meat of the game is, and when I think about actually potentially buying this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I'm interested more for like a narrative perspective. I think like some of the environments were very neat. She's running over that open grassy field, and then she's in the city. And there's that interesting like woman at the end with that cool helmet. That's like, who is she?
mhm.
What's her story? She looked pretty impressive. I would say some of the other characters we were kind of commenting during the trailer. It's like I guess this probably isn't final footage because some of those facial capture was animations and whatever was pretty rough. So I mean, I hope that
Yeah,
gets
they
improved.
were they were a bit stiff, and especially compared like showing them right after some amazing like particle action scene that they clearly put like insane resources into.
Yeah, there's like
It's a
the
little
tale of
bit,
two stories there a little bit.
yeah, a little bit of a disconnect on those, but generally the game like yeah, it looks like it's got some really promising framework. But there's still a lot of questions left to be answered for this one.
So after that, we saw Rainbow Six Extraction, which I feel now we're kind of reaching the saturation point for like seeing this game. I think it looks interesting, like the tactical nature we've talked about before. I also like seeing the military style going a bit more like it's got a kind of a hazmat type of feel, like biohazard type of stuff. It's a little bit different than just your traditional military type thing, but I don't know if we really have too much more to say about this one, considering what we've seen already. But cool to see it here. Any quick thoughts on that, or should we move along?
I think I'm excited about the next game
The
and would
next
like to
game.
move
That's
along.
true. Well, talk to me, Kate. What's your feeling on Alan Wake the remaster? I know this is a big one for
Alan
you.
Wake the remaster. So this is a game I tried to play years ago. I think I was 18 when I played this game, and it scared the shit out of me, but I really wanted to play it. So I did with headphones and everything, and I never finished it, and I always regretted not ever completing the game. So I'm excited about maybe being given a second chance. It looks super good. Stephen King is like my guilty pleasure author. Like every now and
You and a
again,
lot
I
of people.
just yeah. Well, I mean, he's a good author. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed by him. It's just not typically like the stuff I normally gravitate towards. But he's genuinely like a great author, and this Alan Wake being basically like, like a not an homage to Stephen King, but like being very on the nose and very clear about their inspiration by him as an author. Was what drew me to it in the first place, and I think the game was genuinely good, and the with the flashlight mechanic, and it's scary. It tells an interesting story. Like I don't know how it ends either, so I need to buy this game and finally solve the mystery for myself.
This is the one where you have to keep picking up like batteries for your flashlight, right?
Yeah, so how it works, I believe, is it's kind of like a mystery game. You don't really know what's real. You're trying to figure out, I think, what happened to your wife. You don't know she's disappeared, and you're fighting enemies who are basically like invincible. They're shadows of some sort, and you have to like shine your flashlight on them for a long enough amount of time to make them vulnerable so that you can actually fight them. but your flashlight is very limited, so you're having to constantly like replace the batteries or like run to somewhere that has like a street lamp or like there's some light already provided. So it's definitely like a blend of action, but also like you don't get that power fantasy. You're very much vulnerable, which I like in a horror game, but I have trouble playing by myself.
It's the best set of things you can have in a horror game, I think, is like that tension. So that's
Mhm.
good. I think this game honestly will have a really big chance of success because I mean, a lot of people now know Remedy because of Control. And so now they
Mhm.
can advertise this game, to a new generation of people that maybe got into games with like PS4, PS5, and they're, hey, you know what? From the makers of Control, this critically acclaimed game, they're bringing back a remaster of this old game they made. Like, I can see a path to this being like quite successful, and maybe, hopefully, like giving us some more Alan Wake stuff in the future too, because it seems like a cool universe. Um,
Mhm.
so next up, speaking of success and doing well, we got GTA 5 again for I don't know, like you said to me during the show, and this is probably one of the most true things you could say is like, I wonder how many times, if we counted, has GTA 5 shown up in a game conference of some kind. Like it must be 50
It must be so many. I
more.
would be shocked if there's something that's shown up more times than GTA 5. Like
I mean,
just as
Skyrim's
a,
the only one you can think of that might be a
Skyrim's the
contender.
only one, but like they're not in the shows anymore, you know? Like Skyrim's still like coming out with different versions and like okay, you can play it on your fridge. Like that's still the joke and it's still true, but they're not at every show like GTA 5 still is.
You're not wrong. You're honestly not. I'm like I'm just honestly blown away. And at this point, it's kind of just like I wonder how long this can keep going. So good for you, GTA 5. Um, good for you.
Still not gonna play
Still not gonna play it.
it.
But speaking of games, maybe you will play, Kate. We saw another look at Ghostwire Tokyo. This game has kind of resurfaced finally after being missing for what feels like a little bit. I'm sure COVID, and I think they had some changes as far as like as producers and whatnot as well on the project. But we saw a decent length trailer of this, and it had some cool aesthetics there. What are your feelings?
Yeah, so I alluded to at the beginning of the show there were two games I was hoping for. So this will kind of solve. If anyone's been trying to guess, this will probably solve both of it for you. You can figure out what the second one is. But the first one was Ghostwire Tokyo. I just love the atmosphere of the first time we saw this game, and it probably helped that it was an amazing presentation. It was the spooky and like like that was just such a wholesome reveal for the game the first time, but I've been had it on my radar ever since. I've been waiting for something. Um, I'm really excited about what I've seen. I think it's such a cool blend of like a horror, like atmosphere, like psychological, like scary game, but then it's got this like really cool action gameplay to it. And you said while we were watching that it reminded you a little bit of BioShock because you've got the two hands, and it's like when you use the plasma, that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
what it
that's what
looks
it
like.
reminded me of for sure.
And I totally see that. I think that's neat, but just I don't know, all the characters in the game, all the effects, like the setting and how it just sort of seems to like shift reality on you all the time. Like just it seems like so disorienting, but I'm intrigued and I think if it wasn't for the final game that kind of showed up and stole the show from everyone, this would be without a doubt my game of the showcase.
Interesting. Wow, that's really hot on it. I mean, I'm interested by it for sure. I don't think I'm quite as I don't know, enraptured by it as you are. I think it looks good, but to me, for
Mm.
some reason, I think this game got revealed alongside Deathloop, and for some reason in my mind, for whatever justification, I kind of have those games tied together for me, and I'm like, oh, which of these would I prefer? And to me, Deathloop has been the one that I've gotten more interested in each time we've seen it. Whereas for this one, I just kind of I'm left like I'm interested, but I still don't exactly understand what this really is, other than like some flashy powers kind of coming around and this. I mean, everything about it looks neat, but I still don't really have a feeling of what exactly you're doing or like what the mystery is, what's the story. Um, I mean, it is like an action horror type of gameplay, I guess, but still, I'm just wanting to know a little bit more first. But it does look cool, no doubt about it.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And I still don't even 100% know. I just think that I've never seen a game in this kind of setting before. It looks so interesting, unusual, and like so fresh. And the gameplay looks like it could be really interesting. And so that alone, I don't know, it's like fantasy, like occult Resident Evil.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, straight up.
with like magic powers instead of guns, and it just looks like an absolute like it looks like one of those games where like I can't explain to you what this is, but you have to play it.
Right. Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, the concept, the ingredients are there. I just hope they pull it off, and I mean, it looks like they're on the path to doing that, so that's good. So after that, we got the first of what turns out to be spoilers, quite a little set of Marvel announcements in the showcase. But we saw more of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. We saw Midnight Suns a couple weeks ago with a sick Metallica musical score for the trailer, and this one was also more of a pop punk feel, but also like Marvel's hitting these musical trailers for sure. It's been really good.
If there's one takeaway from Marvel, this is it.
I don't know why that stands out to me, but it does. They're just killing it. Anyway, this is, I guess, an extended look of kind of more of the Guardians from the first look we saw. I think this game looks pretty good. I mean, it's all going to come down to how impactful are the choices to me, and like how you can manipulate the story. But I really like the character designs here. I like that they're not copying the MCU. I think they all. I mean, Rocket especially. I think we were talking about his little braided beard and everything. Like he looks cool to me. And we saw a bit more of who we imagined would be the villain this time. So I think this game it's not like got me insanely hyped, but I'm definitely interested, and because it's Marvel and something that interests me quite a bit, I'm sure I'll play this at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same sentiment. Like I don't think this is one of my like day one purchases, but I think it looks like it has a lot of potential. And I agree. I think when we saw this game originally, we both agreed that what'll kind of make or break it for us is the dynamic between the Guardians themselves and what their chemistry is like. Because I think that's kind of like the core of who those characters are and like how they play off of each other. So I think if they get that right, the game will kind of fall into place. And I am a big fan. Yeah, you mentioned the Rocket little beard that he's got going on. I'm a big fan of that. That's like half a point up. So yeah, I think I want to see more. I think it looks good, but probably not a day one purchase.
Speaking of probably not a day one purchase, what did you feel about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodhunt? And how was that? Second follow-up question, how was that for a segue?
It was about on par with how I think about Bloodhunt.
So really good?
Or I think that it actually looked like it could be cool if you're into this style of game. Some of the movement options were neat. The character abilities, that Nosferatu guy that like went invisible and then slid out of it. Very cool, flashy. I think you get some like big Twitch plays in this game. But I don't know. It doesn't spark joy in my life.
Yeah, I get you too, and I think like especially that experience you had playing this on PS Plus that one time, like that other game in the series, maybe didn't help, but yeah, I mean it looks interesting, but I just feel like in the world we live in with so many different multiplayer games out there on offer, whether they're paid or free or battle royale or whatever. I just don't know if this really stands out that much, and I mean the trailer itself was just. I feel like it could have used a narrator. I think they were trying to show off different classes of characters, but it was just kind of, it wasn't really well presented in my opinion anyway. Like I'm still left kind of wondering what you're doing exactly. So, I mean, hopefully there's an audience for it. Hope it does well, but I think we're going to pass it over. Speaking of games we will not pass over, Deathloop, we spoke about that just a little bit before. I mean, I think like I said before, I've gotten only higher on Deathloop the more we've seen of it. And so, I'm just interested to now go on media blackout for this game, kind of avoid spoilers for the next year or so, and then once it comes out on Game Pass, I can play it there.
I think I'm in the same kind of sentiment. Like, I think I've seen everything I need to know about it now, and if I see more, it might just be too oversaturated, and I feel like I might, just want to save that experience for the actual game. I think it genuinely looks really good. We've spoken to Death about this, so I won't.
Deathloop. Don't want to leave that conversation around.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we won't replay it over and over again. But I think this game looks really fun. I like the mystery element. I love the main character and his like, oh, like fuck, here I go again
like, oh
attitude.
Yeah, it's very realistic. Very realistic.
Yeah, I like that. I think he's a ton of fun. I think the multiplayer element, how it works where you're kind of like almost invading each other's game to take them down is really cool. So this is I think this looks like a great game. I think it looks like it's excelling at what it sets out to do, and I'm glad it's coming out on September 14th, which is in 5 days from us recording, because that means no more trailers will be coming out for Deathloop.
just constant commercials and advertisements online.
Exactly. And now people can finally just start playing this game. It looks great.
Yeah. So I would say the theme of today's show in totality was Marvel. Came up all the time, but another thing this showcase had quite a bit of was horror style games, and or things with little twinges of creepiness. And I would say this next one really fell into that. This was how do you even say this? A Mnesia exhibition. Like, it's not Amnesia, it's A Mnesia. Either way, this is looks to be like quite a small budget kind of horror style. I don't really know what was going on here. It's like found footage kind of, but man, it was pretty creepy.
Yeah, and they really didn't show much. It was very much just kind of like a teaser trailer. If anything, it gave me maybe Stranger Things kind of vibes, but a little bit scarier than Stranger Things.
Oh, well, Stranger Things isn't scary, really.
Yeah, I think the first season was pretty scary. The other season,
there was some scary parts.
Yeah, once we got to see a bit more of the monsters, it became less scary. But that first season had some good moments. But it was kind of like that. I think this game genuinely looks scary. They nailed the tone. Other than that, I have no idea what it is.
We will see. Either way, there's kind of like Amnesia in the name. Is that a nod to Amnesia: The Dark Descent? We don't know.
I say, well, I mean, you can't make a horror game and not, and have Amnesia in your name, but not be acknowledging Amnesia. It is such a pioneer, important game.
So after we saw that one, we saw, oh my god, I didn't know I was ready for this, but Tchia. This game, for some reason, just blew me away, and it was one of my surprises of the show. It might even be my most surprising announcement of the show, for stuff that we just had no idea about. Apparently, this was already revealed at the Game Awards last year, but I don't know. I must have missed it or forgot or something like that. But this game just looks beautiful and like one of those kind of serene type of exploration games where not everything has to have a conflict. It's like Breath of the Wild kind of exploration. There's the gliding that we've come to expect. There's a lot of different aspects to the world. It seems to have a lot of cultural overtones as well. I'm not exactly sure where the developer is from or what they're trying to go for in that way, but it looks like it's trying to tell to make commentary kind of on that type of stuff as well. So it just looks amazing to me, and I'm excited to play something like this. It's a nice change of pace, relaxing type of style game for sure. So it just looks amazing to me. I want to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, hang on, I'm just going to Google something. I think they might have said.
It might have said.
Where it's from. It's New Caledonia.
Oh, they did at the end of the thing. That's right.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to just re-record that last little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. No, we'll just hang out. We're just
an island in the
chilling.
South
We're just
Pacific.
chilling. She's petting a crab right now. People love the petting ever since Tsushima did that. One thing we didn't talk about for this game was the fact that she can warp herself into different animals. That's the way you're exploring this. It kind of reminds me of A Short Hike, actually, too. That little indie game. I think I talked about it on the show a little while ago, but maybe a bigger scale version of that, and controlling different animals, maybe like Mario Odyssey. There's some good ideas here.
Yeah, absolutely. This one was a standout, and I think a much needed palate cleanser for the show. It's so go, so hype, all these crazy action games. And then it's nice to calm down and just take it slow with a really beautiful, connect with nature, emotional kind of game. And this looks genuinely amazing. I don't know how I missed it at previous shows because I didn't recognize it, and I'm disappointed with myself. But this game is definitely one I'm going to keep my eye on. I like the idea of just learning a little bit of something different, a new culture, and getting some kind of takes. And this is very much a passion project kind of game. And I want to support this kind of stuff. I think this is the perfect example of games, are they art kind of, those debates that we get into sometimes, and some people how they view the industry and kind of their perception on what gaming can be. And I think these kind of experiences are very important for a lot of people, and it just looks like a really polished, well-crafted game in that genre.
So Kate, is this the point where our man Herman Hulst came out on the stage here and gave his little speech there about PlayStation Studios? And I would like to say too, it was nice to actually see him and Jim Ryan come out and actually be kind of personalities on the presentation rather than just that amorphous voice that usually just comes out of the background and talks to us. It was nice to get some personality. I did enjoy that as well. I think that's something PlayStation's been missing. But anyway, I think this is about the time when he came out on stage, and ever since this moment of the presentation, things just began to take off and go crazy. So strap in, everybody. We got some big things to talk about now. First up is, I guess, maybe the smallest of all these. Uncharted Collection is coming to PC and PS5. The keyword there is PC. So Uncharted 4 and Uncharted Lost Legacy are both getting remastered. This is really exciting. I'm this is obviously one of PlayStation's biggest franchises over the past decade or so, and so getting this out to more people and remastering what is already a couple of very beautiful games, like this is going to be great for those people that have not played these yet.
Yeah, the PC was a big note. They kind of just like threw that on in text and didn't really linger on it too much, but that's definitely going to be a big deal for a lot of people. Uncharted's great. It's kind of one of the first like franchises I would say that made PlayStation really a big like exclusives kind of company, and like I'm excited. I've actually well, a small confession, I haven't played 4 yet.
That's okay.
I played the
That's
first
right.
3 and I love them, but I just haven't gotten around to 4. And this is really giving me the kick in the ass, like, oh shit, like I haven't forgotten that game existed, but like, okay, we need to remember to schedule some time for that.
Yeah, straight up. Okay, so after that, this is where things really got crazy. So here we are, we're watching this trailer, and it shows a bar scene. There's like, some guys drinking at the bar, PlayStation Studios logo comes up, and you see Insomniac, and we're like, oh my god, yes, Spider-Man 2.
And the Marvel logo.
And the Marvel logo.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
We know it must be Spider-Man. Must be Spider-Man. Little scene happens. What's going on? Did he just beat up some guys? Who's the villain gonna be? And then as the trailer gets towards the end, there's this guy, and he's about to get attacked, and what happens? It's fucking Wolverine, and the claws come out of his hand. And I think we both this was so surprising, not like for so many reasons.
Yes.
Like, we didn't know a Wolverine game was confirmed to be happening. We definitely didn't expect it after seeing Insomniac pop up and Marvel. Like, how do they're doing both of these games now and Ratchet and Clank? They're going crazy over there. This is great news though, because if it's anything as good as those other 2 games, this is one to look out for.
Yes, Insomniac is going full on God mode. And of course they cut it there because that's the beauty of the fake out of this trailer, is that psych, it's not Spider-Man, it's Wolverine, you get nothing.
Yeah. No details whatsoever. It just says Wolverine, black screen.
Tons of props to Insomniac. This will probably be fantastic, and we'll see more soon.
Let's hope so. Because I'm definitely interested in this. I mean, the fact that it's Wolverine, fine, he's a very popular character. I would still be interested in it, but the fact that it's not just that, but it's also Insomniac, after the success they've seen, like they've got to be just on a pedestal right now to get this as well. So shout out to Insomniac, best studio, I think. After that, we got to relax a little bit. Gran Turismo 7 was shown. Same thing we always say for these car games, Kate. The cars look beautiful, great graphics. I'm sure for the people that are racing fans and have been waiting to get a game like this. I know it's been a while since we had GT6, I'm pretty sure, so this must be very exciting. I know it's not really for us, but nice to see it here nonetheless, and looks to be a pretty good game for everything we saw.
It looks good, I think, and I guess after the show, they explained about how the adaptive triggers will work on the DualSense to change the driving experience. So I haven't actually caught the details of that, but when we were watching it, that was definitely what was on my mind, was like, how would they make the controller work for a racing game? Like, that could probably feel amazing, the acceleration. So that is probably the most interesting thing about the game for me personally, not being a car person. But it's definitely like, if you're a car fan, this is like your hype moment, and nobody expects anything otherwise.
Kate, they already have Wreckfest.
They already have Wreckfest. Oh, that's right. I've forgotten. Yeah, but Wreckfest doesn't have the triggers, so this is like Wreckfest 2.0. But speaking of expectations, moving on to the next one. Fucking Insomniac with the double fake out. They let one trailer go in between, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, Spider-Man 2 as well. Just,
my God,
in case you thought it wasn't happening after Wolverine.
Just double fake out. Not only are they doing Wolverine, they're also like showing Spider-Man 2, and obviously they're showing in the future. I would assume Wolverine is, very early in development, gonna get finished up and worked on after Spider-Man 2 is kind of out there. But
Mhm.
man, what a trailer for Spider-Man 2. I gotta say, seeing Venom as the villain, that is cool as hell. And
Mhm.
not let alone seeing that they're, one of my biggest questions as the kind of person that's played these games of Miles Morales is like, is Miles Morales going to be in Spider-Man 2? Is this going to be a situation where both characters are there? Like, what are they doing with this? And the trailer just makes it clear right from the bat. There's no guessing. We're not going to be speculating. Like, they're both there. You're doing combo moves on enemies. Like, is this the multiplayer game that Insomniac was rumored to be working on? There's just so many questions. And I mean, no matter what the answer ends up being, I just cannot wait to play Spider-Man 2 and see more of these characters and check out, what other Marvel type surprises are in there too, because this was great.
This was like props to Insomniac. This was an amazing move. It's so cheeky. I love it. I think the multiplayer aspect, I think that'd be so incredibly cool. Like they've totally refined how these Spider-Man games feel now with like the first one and then Miles Morales. Like they've got it. And so I think that leaves room to be ambitious for this sequel. And like maybe it'll be a mode within the game. Maybe it'll be like how cool would it be to do the full campaign? Like maybe you could just get to choose which one you are. Like you said, there's a lot of questions. But this trailer definitely implied to me like, and on top of them saying they were working on a multiplayer thing, like I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibilities. And if they're working on something like that, and Wolverine and Ratchet and Clank, and holy shit, Insomniac, slow down, like, take a breather. Like, holy shit, you guys are fantastic.
Yeah, we should look into it, but I mean, they must be really scaling up their employee count and everything because they're busy as hell over there.
I hope
all this
so.
stuff.
Like, I really hope so because you make great games. Let your employees enjoy them. Like, do not let your studio name be like what's actually happening to your employees.
We
So,
laughed, but
like,
that would not be good.
no, that would not be good nor funny. So, like, slow down. It'll all come out in time. There's no rush. Just make a beautiful game and be proud of it. And oh my god, what a way to almost end the presentation.
Almost ended it. And speaking of slow down, take your time. We did not get a release date for this final game, and they made sure to be cheeky about that. But the showcase ended off. We finally saw it. We saw not only did we see God of War Ragnarok, we saw a mix of gameplay, some story trailer. It really went kind of all out showing the game. It's Kratos, it's Atreus, it's all the characters we know and love from the first one. And I mean, Atreus seems to be a bit older and kind of questioning his place, and just the dynamic looks like, I don't know if the game is after a time gap or kind of when this takes place, but everything about this was just, I mean, not that I could be more excited. They could have shown anything in this game would have been like, the heavy hitter, I think, for most people, but it was just so nice to see it here. So nice to kind of see where they're taking the series, even though, it's our first look. And I don't really have anything else to say other than I just couldn't be more excited to, when the day comes to finally play this and see where it all goes.
Yeah, I'm like, this is the other game I was hoping for. I mean, obviously, who wasn't hoping for Ragnarok? Like, it's a freebie, but it looks so good. I love the like winter atmosphere, and like Ragnarok is coming. Like, it's such a cool premise for a game. Like seeing like my boy Kratos, he's back. Like Atreus is here. Like I get like chills, like waiting for what this game is gonna be like. And yeah, they made sure to show everyone like the game is
Mimir's there for
gorgeous.
sure, smoking a
Yeah, Mir's
cigar on the
there.
table.
Brock and
Perfect.
Sindri. You ride a dog sled. There's a dog sled. Kratos has 2 dogs. I hope those are his dogs and you don't just get to borrow them. Like I think Kratos would be like, we're not getting a dog, boy, and then like the one like taking the dog out every day and like petting it.
I really hope that's how it comes
he's
about, because that would
he's
be
one of
like
those
amazing.
dads.
What's interesting about this to me is kind of, I mean, all of it, but one thing that Atreus ends up saying in the trailer is like, he says something along the lines of, you need to start thinking like a general. And I'm thinking in my mind, like they're at that point, they're going through this market looking place as well. And I'm wondering how populated is this world? Because for one thing, God of War 2018 or God of War, I guess, in general, has always been fairly small cast sizes. There's not a lot of characters. It's more the spectacle and the environments and the combat.
And by the end of the game, 80% of them are dead.
And they're all dead, and their eyes are poked out and dismembered and all that. But I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that's like, are they kind of introducing some type of city into this, or how are we going to really expand that cast out? I don't know. Like, did you get any vibes of that? Like, what did you think?
Yeah, it's definitely different than the first game, which, like you said, yeah, it's very like character driven, focused on Kratos and Atreus, and I think it worked in that game's favor. But expanding that a little bit might be, an interesting way to kind of take their relationship and just throw some more variables at it so that we have a bit more for both of them to play off of. Because we've kind of seen them grow together, and they definitely still have a lot more of that left to do. But it's nice to kind of, introduce some other elements that can foil them in various other ways. So the towns were really interesting. We kind of missed out on, like what exactly is life like for other people in this world, not, just Kratos.
Yeah, there's got to be other people there. So
yeah.
what are their lives like?
That's kind of neat, and maybe getting to see some more of the races. In terms of variety, I think what excited me the most, and you pointed out we were watching as well, is enemy variety. That was kind of the one big flaw for me in God of War 2018, was that there just wasn't tons of variety. You fought a lot of similar enemies, even just in terms of like the smaller encounters, and then additionally with a lot of similar boss fights.
Those big troll guys with the big slab of rock and all that. We fought that
so
guy
many
palette
trolls,
swapped like 5 or 6 times, I think.
Exactly, and like each one of them individually was good, and even fighting them a couple of times with variations is nice. But I think that's one of the things that was kind of acknowledged about God of War, is if we had more time to develop it, we would have liked to put a bit more variety in the game. And so even in this trailer, it shows off a lot more variety for what you fight in terms of like encounters and enemies. So I think that is a really good sign. I don't think we got really any bosses aside from that Thor is going to be a big antagonist, which I'm really excited to see, because in mythology, Thor is like an absolute like war-hungry brute.
Yeah,
I think that side of him could be really cool to get a little bit more of, and with the history of 2018, like I cannot wait. Like this is a day one purchase. Like we agreed day one, like
this is a book off from work purchase, like maybe a week off, you never know. Can't travel really right now anyway. God of War, man, it looked great. And the enemy variety thing, that's such a, we talked about that before, but that was, that's if you're nitpicking problems with a game like God of War, that would be the one. But yeah, it just looks great. And let's close out here, Kate. Let's clear our minds for a second. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to take a few deep breaths. Okay, everyone listening, do this with me right now. We're gonna answer a couple questions here, just to make some predictions about God of War. Okay, so does Kratos die at the end of God of War 2? Yes or no?
Yes.
You say yes.
Yes. I'm so sad. Yes.
Everyone, take note of these answers here. We're gonna have a contest. I will say he will not. I think he will not die. I think things come in trilogies. No, I think things come in trilogies, and I think that everyone's expecting him to die, or like that's on the table now. So I feel like there'll be a fake out, and then maybe in the third one,
Okay, but all right, but so does my answer not count if it's a fake out, or if he comes back to life?
Oh no. Okay, we should clarify this. If he is dead at the conclusion of the game and is not resurrected, you're right, because technically we don't know what's going to happen in the third one. But if he's like stabbed in the chest 2/3 of the way through and then comes back at the end and he's fine, then I win.
Okay, yeah, I'm going for dead, end of game, maybe come back.
It's his status at the end of the game. That's what we're saying.
Okay, end of the game, dead.
Okay, next question. I got 2 more. Okay. Is Atreus playable for any portion of the game?
That is tough. I know that's been a big like speculation. They obviously didn't show it, but they wouldn't at this stage of the game. If he's playable, they're going to keep it a surprise for the whole game. But is he? I'm going to say no. They're going to Red Dead us, and he is going to be playable for 3 after Kratos dies in this one, and then they're going to like surprise at the end of 3. You get to play like as Kratos again later on as like a big twist.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. I will say he is playable, but it's in like it's not in like the main game. There's either going to be some kind of like dream sequences or like a post credits thing or something like that. I don't think he's going to be like, it's not going to be like swap between him or anything like that. I think that he'll just have more of an expanded kit to call on, like you were with the arrows in the first one or something. Yeah,
I think he's gonna be like, like the arrows, like you're technically like you have buttons for him, but I think you're Kratos this game until he dies, of course.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, and last question. So within Norse mythology, which the game is based on, there are 9 realms, or at least according to this article that I'm reading, there are 9 realms. In God of War 2018, we got to go to Alfheim, Helheim, Jotunheim, Muspelheim, and Niflheim, which is 5. So in this game, in the sequel, how many of those other 9 realms will we get to visit?
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, I'd like to say all of them. But that's maybe just wishful thinking. I think we're gonna see Asgard. We didn't get to see Asgard last game. I think that's obviously happening. Midgard, pretty much guaranteed we're gonna be there. I think they might skip out on like Hell. Because we'll get that later with Kratos coming back in 3. I really committed to this.
Your answers are tied together on that. Very committed.
Well, like, I don't know. I'm going all out. I don't want to be flippy floppy on them. I think aside from Hell, we will get everything.
Okay, so you're saying 3 of the last 4.
I'm saying yes. I say not Hell, every other realm.
Okay,
in some capacity. Some might be like optional side area or something.
Yeah, but they're accessible though. Yeah, okay.
They're accessible, but no going to Hell this time. We're done with that. Okay,
I'm gonna be a contrarian to you, and I'm gonna say we're also gonna go to 3 more realms, but the missing one will be Asgard, and it's gonna be because I'm gonna predict right now, hot prediction, whatever, off the top of my head, that although there's going to be characters from Asgard in this game, they're going to be like protagonists or antagonists in the other realms. And then the third one of the sequel, the trilogy, if there is a third one, why would there not be, will be, okay, now we got to take the fight to them and go to Asgard. And that'll be like the setting of the last game.
I could see that could be like the big like climax for the final game. And to be fair, like, yeah, we've seen them all just kind of coming down to the realms. They're like bifrosting themselves down, which is like super fucking cool. But you're right. I think Asgard will either be like the climax of this game, and if it's not, then it better show up in 3.
Man, we just can't get too far ahead of ourselves, though. You know, we got to wait for this game. There's no release date. I mean,
we are speculating like 10 years down the future.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, this is probably a 2023 game, maybe 2024 if it gets delayed. Like, we got a ways to go until we play this. So, I mean, by no means are we, licking our chops yet for God of War, but it's on the horizon. We've seen it. It's playable. Like, someone played it to capture that footage. So, how far along the rest of the game is remains to be seen. But man, what a way to close it out. And overall, I would say, like, yeah, this was such a fun presentation to watch. I mean, there was maybe a few lesser interesting parts throughout it, but overall, I think it started off with a bang with KOTOR and kind of slowly ramped up towards the end. And then by the end, when you're seeing all that Marvel stuff and Spider-Man and God of War at the end, like, man, what a way to close it out. And this is like game Christmas right here. So this is what we always want to see when these presentations come up.
Right? Yeah, we're going to ride this adrenaline for the next couple days, and then it's going to be like, well, let's hope they come out eventually.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know what? To be fair, keep in mind with like, the way things have been recently, I think, we've touted the entire time that developers take your time, put the game out when it's ready, like the world is exploding. If God of War is still possible in 2 years, we are happy to wait for it. And there are so many games to play up until then. It's almost maybe in our best interest.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, like,
games.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, oh my god, if I could play God of War tomorrow, I would not be going into work. There's not a chance.
The future is bright for video games, Kate, and the future is bright for this podcast as well. Remember, if you would like to write in with your thoughts on the presentation, what your favorite game was, what you think is going to happen at God of War, what are your answers to those questions we answered at the end? Let us know. circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com, or like I said, we're on Twitter @CNSPod. Follow us there for all the updates and to answer our questions as well, because it'd be fun to chat, get in touch. And Kate, with that, I think we're going to close out the show. We'll be back again next week with our regularly scheduled episode. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. The intro and outro music for Circles and Squares was produced by friend of the show, Matthew Chan. Interlude music is from Scott Gratton of the Free Music Archive. Our channel art was created by @unreasonable on Twitter, and our brother Alex is the designer of the Circles and Squares logo. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show.